More Dakka. More like no Dakka. GW did it again. So what now? Why Orcs? My thoughts and a tier list. Let's get stuck in, lads. So today we're going to talk about what GW has done yet again. But we're going to come up with some solutions. I'm going to vent some frustrations from the overall Orc community, try to give perspective for not only Orc players, but maybe people who are curious as to why Orc players may be having some of the responses online that they have, because boy, online has been looking heated, right? So we're going to talk about all that, and we're going to come up with some good talks as well as a tier list that I'm going to do at the end as for what I think about all the factions as a whole. So with that being said, we got to talk about today's sponsors, the Baron of Dice. So thank you to Baron of Dice for allowing us to do our paint competition. Check them out because their high quality dice help us out. And of course, Forge Fire Gaming, because they allow us to do our tactical videos. So thank you to that. Check everybody out in the description because nobody likes taxes. So why Orcs, right? And here's the one. And of course, we're going to go to the questions and comments and all the chats at the end of the video. Why Orcs? So it's not only Orcs, but it's always Orcs. Now, let me elaborate on that, unpack that. So everybody knows that GW has been, nuking and nerfing multiple different armies and factions throughout 40K, whether it's Custodes, Sisters, Necrons got hit before they even got to hit the table, right? But whenever Orcs get a good, detachment, quote unquote, or really nice, fancy tools, shiny tools that gains the attention of the community, right away it seems like that gets hit. As soon as you know someone that's in the top, 30, if a dozen people in the top 30 are looking at Orcs to any degree, whether it's to hate on them or to use them, praise them, whatever it is, you know that we're about to get hit with a nerf automatically. It's kind of just goes hand in hand. At least that's the presumption online, right? And it does feel that way because people keep, pushing us backwards. Now, that does give you some inclination to be frustrated, and I agree with that because GW is the one that's truly at fault here. But if you're looking at your fellow players saying, hey, this was too strong because, the stats and the win rates were out of hand, right? A third of the Orc player base, guys, giving you perspective here, was going XN0 or XN1. The win rate was sitting above 56% win rate, getting into the 60s. So there was a consensus that this needed to be nerfed, but it didn't need an execution. There was already being counterplay being kind of instructed into the game. People were starting to understand it, and they understood that, hey, if you nerf the 4 problematic data sheets, which were Zod interaction, the shock attack guns, tank busters, and Ludas, then maybe this could be a bit more playable if you just made them not so able to spike damage on sustain 2, or just removed it from them, or removed the wall capabilities of Zod itself. Could we get something else in the detachment to make it more appealing so I can keep using, walkers and other battle line infantry units? Maybe they can keep sustain 2 and I can have some flexibility here. But it just wasn't that case. And we're going to actually show the rules real quick as to what actually happened as well. But what's going on here is that there's no identity that really remains in this detachment, right? So we get our hands on good tools, good rules, and then GW doesn't tweak it. They simply decapitate it, and then you're sitting there with a hollow detachment. So people are like, hey, you still have good detachments. Yes, but we have 8 detachments, and 4 of them kind of don't really find an identity or make sense. Now, a lot of people say just play Warhorde. That's fine. Warhorde is absolutely powerful, and we love Warhorde when it's time to get stuck in. I think when you're an intermediate, newer player or someone that's just getting their hands on Orcs, jump on Warhorde, get your collection filled out. Don't chase any detachment or any units or any meta lists, and really start to flush out your collection. But to everyone else, you've been playing Warhorde style rules since 8th edition. You have a fully fleshed out codex. You really like rules and things, interactions to be cool, not so exclusive to the point that they're choked up on, like Bully Boys, for example, where you're like, well, you got your 2 WAAAGHs, but that's pretty much all you got. Everything else kind of sucks, and you got 3 data sheets to play with. So then you don't get really that fun flexibility that Warhorde really has. There's something in this that all tells us that GW really doesn't seem to understand, Orcs at its core. When they go and actually nuke us, they don't really know how to dissect it or take it apart, or they don't really care to do it. And then when they write rules for us, they're excited because there's some passionate Orc lovers that are back there behind GW. But then, when it actually hits the tables, it's obviously not played real well because they don't understand how we do our damage and how we actually win the game. And so there we end up getting broken interactions, which we don't actually want, and we don't actually want meta players to jump onto our faction. So these are some of the frustrations that Orc players have been pulling out. But we're going to talk about how we can, work around this and actually get stuck in. So if you didn't catch on to the little picture at first where it says few slight changes right here, Warhammer community, GW said, hey, we made a few slight changes. But did they? Not really. So we're looking at Dakka. As for the detachment rule, and what they've done is they've really just swapped what we were able to do. We all, heard and watched the Art of War videos where they suggested this for the GW, and the community's like, hey, did you guys just listen to them and not even try? Sometimes it may appear that way, and then sometimes it was just that this could have been a good rule for any other army that wasn't Orcs. Right. So I understand why both sides of this is actually looked at. So, every Orcs, infantry, and walkers get assault now, generally throughout the game. Your flash gets and your burner boys might enjoy this. Your walkers kind of. And then on the detachment and, on the wall, you're getting, all our wall abilities, and you get sustain 1 for infantry and walkers. That's cool. But it's not really why you'd want to play this detachment, considering dread mob's already cool enough. Now we have long controlled outbursts that got hit. When the detachment first dropped, the first thing I said was, oh, if you made it so a character had to see the unit, this would make more sense and wouldn't be so broken. But as soon as you change it into a Space Marine style of rule, where it's like one unit gets to do it, sure, it's easier to do, but Orcs don't do it a damage by one unit deleting someone. They do it by damage by association, right? We want to take advantage of baiting out the Space Marine Armor of Contempt and then taking advantage of this strat if it was a group, jump in, Dakka, everybody making it rain on them, right? So I think, an intellectual kind of like, I know that this is an obviously good as it is data sheet, a bit stratagem as it is for the majority of other factions in 40K, but how Orcs operate, this would be better if it was a character seeing you and then they removed your cover for everybody else. Would it be very, very strong? Yeah, but, considering what they already did to the detachment, it wouldn't be too strong. Now we have get stuck in lags. It got changed to its 2 CP, which everybody thinks it's fine. It's not a big deal. Now, but it's the fact that it also excludes Gretchen. Now, something that I think you guys should all check out, bam, 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 on your app as you've updated it, is the Gretchen isn't a necessarily keyword. It's Gretchen as in the Gretchen unit. So your Grot 40-point unit is that Gretchen unit. Your kilocans, your mech guns don't have the Gretchen keyword. It's a Grot keyword. So that means this is very specific for excluding simply the Grot unit. So yeah, so that being said, this was too strong as it was and was entailed that you needed it to be multiple CP. But when you really just look at how the detachment works in itself, it just doesn't have an appeal for what you'd want to spend this on and the pace of the game, how this would be appealing to anything. You could say, hey, I'm going to stick this on Gaz, but then it's like, sure, I'm kind of running a Gaz brick with just a really kind of weird, crappy gun line, or like burner boys running around them doing stuff. It's kind of like, where's the identity here? So I understand that being a frustration and why people aren't actually enjoying this, and that's actually why people aren't happy with what's happened. So now let's say, what now, boss? Right? A lot of the time, people are looking at this and they're like, "What do I do? I'm frustrated. I either collected this or I was looking to own this and play this. Maybe I was looking to play Dakka and all this, and maybe I'm just new to just your channel as a whole. What's going on here? Where do I go now?" Well, something that if you didn't know, I'm going to let you know now. More Dakka's foundation is the same as Dreadmob, as in Dreadmob has already been running the same units in the same quantities and been finding success. Even the week before More Dakka was released, while Tactical Brigade was doing well, there was players still doing well with Dreadmob going X and 1 at events. And me, myself, I've been enjoying it. We didn't really get to even explore it as Orc players when the actual big changes that happened during the last data slate was that Orcs could call WAAAGH on their, on their prerogative when they decided to on their player turn instead of the battle round, which is a big deal and is something that maybe Dreadmob could explore more. So if you're playing with those units, I think you can explore it. But what else? Well, let's say I wanted to play more Dakka. Maybe I could run Burner Boys. Burner Boys would enjoy having a assault throughout their army wide. You could start to elaborate on that and try to figure that out if someone who's really focused on utilizing more Dakka because they still have some cool stratagems and you like the identity that maybe they belong to Bad Moons. Another thing I find a little bit appealing about more Dakka is that it seems to focus on walkers in a different way than Dreadmob does. So Dreadmob still does it. I still love my stomp at Dreadmob. I will still wreck you. I still think Kilocans, a big 6-man unit, are better in Dreadmob than more Dakka. But if you're playing like Morkanot, Gorkanot, Dread Mob, you might find appeal in this detachment a bit more because the strats and you're not really hurting yourself anymore, right? And then, but the real question is it worth your time? I can't, in my good conscience, tell you to get your repetitions here, especially when we talk about the tier list video and how you should approach that. So, that's something we can explore more in the tier list video, but I don't think if you've collected Ludas, Tank Busters, Flash Kits, Gretchen Zod, you can totally still run Zod and Dreadmob because he reactive moves 12s on the wall. Guys, that's freaking sick. If you run up to some little unit, clap it, then it's someone that they're trying to use to screen you, and then you stand in their way with your gun line, and you're like, well, if any of your units try to move, I'm going to react to move 12 and just box you in. That's crazy. That was already crazy before the obvious brokenness behind Zod being able to wall turn one and run in your face. So if you were someone who was already practicing with Zod, or you really learned to enjoy him and appreciate him, you can still find him being amazing in Dreadmob or in other Orc detachments because Zod was already sick himself. That's something we pushed here all the time. So just some final thoughts on Nerf before we go into the tier list video. Of course, this is live, so if you got something to say it, because that might influence the tier list a little in the video, and because I'm going to answer your questions at the end. Now, final thoughts is the rest of the Warhammer community should take note. You could be next. Now, I know some of you are thinking, I have been next. That's a Sisters of Battle player, right? Or a Tau or something. What I'm really trying to tell you is that GW promised us that everybody's going to get a new detachment. Therefore, you might be handed really cool rules that you find that you've fallen in love with, and then GW hits you in the head as well and just nerfs you into oblivion, kind of like our brethren in Astra Militarum to a degree that are playing Bridgehead, where it was like, well, that got oblivion. Now no one cares about that at all. So you could very much be next. This is very much a bad thing of GW to consistently show the community that they're going to do, because it really discourages people from collecting, hobbying. Not everybody wants to be up to date to rules consistently. A lot of us have lives, and even to watch YouTube videos could sometimes be too much of an investment to watch multiple channels to get all of the information to understand how to run the detachments and keep up to date on the rules. So GW is just setting a bad precedence here, and I think they need to hold the horses. I know that you guys are enjoying making that bread and putting out the new rules, and it is very exciting. We are grateful for how you've changed the game, and everybody can understand that. But for new players, intermediate players that are just getting dissuaded from getting stuck in more, or older players that are trying to get new, it's just not something that's going to keep people around or keep the community happy. As you can see, a lot of the time people are fighting each other now, when really GW is at fault. Now, when the dust has settled, it's for now. Orc players should really take that time to focus on, 1 to 2 detachments, figure out what of the remaining detachments we're going to talk about today you want to try to explore and increase your capacity to play it on, because that does take decision making, understanding the weaknesses of that detachment compared to the other one, and what units go in those detachments, right? So I think you should also focus on 2 to 3 different units that you really want to explore getting good at and playing with, and then attaching them and marrying them to different detachments, and really exploring the fact that Orcs were already doing great before Grotmas, and before we even had Tactical or More Dakka. Therefore, let's take advantage that, 1, the WAAAGH is now on our own initiative, and then 2, we can now flesh out the other detachments that we have remaining. Don't forget that we really appreciate having tank busters, right? We didn't have anything that was anti-tank at range reliably before tank busters came out. We had shock attack guns, we had looters already. I mean, that's cool, but we didn't have tank busters, and GW didn't increase the points on tank busters or looters or shock attack guns again for now. Therefore, I think we should be happy that we can explore their already strong detachments and then add the new tools that GW gave us from the 2 new data sheets from the Orcs and the WAAAGH change itself. So that's why I'm trying to encourage you guys that, yes, it's frustrating. I'm with you. But, I'm a seasoned peppermint. I already know what's going on, and I'm like, hey, I was already moving on in my head as to what were the best parts of this, and the other detachments are great, but we also have new data sheets that are going to feel great. It's still excellent to be an Orc, and we're just glad that GW didn't hit our points. Keep it that way, GW. Gave you some credit. Don't make me take it back. All right, that's fine. And like I said, if you were looking at anything that was being used in More Dakka, for the most part, it was pretty much used in Dread Mob already, from Ludas to Tank Busters to Shock Attack Guns to Zod to Gretchen to a Walker, and Death Shred still suck. All right, cool. Now it's time for us to do the tier list video. It is not the most in-depth, powerful tier list video, but it is a very thoughtful tier in my heart. No, so here's the tier list. I wanted to do it by tiers, literally, because I think it's also a bit subjective once you get within the tiers as to how good you are between how you pilot those detachments internally and what you actually own, yada, yada, yada. And I know several people who break the spectrum and go up and down on it. So these are just general statements, and I'll explain why. So we have tier 1, and I will explain when I say GT 80 players plus or super majors. I think if you're someone that's looking for a tier 1 detachment to begin with, because you want to get your best performance, you want to go X1 or more assuredly than not, and you want to win as many games as possible, you're going to do some repetitions, you're going to learn the missions, you're going to get practice games in. I think you should look into Warhorde, Green Tide, and possibly Tactical Brigade. Okay, to start off, as those my top 3. Warhorde Fight on Death is amazing. Us being able to initiate because speed and throttling of damage is huge. They utilize using trash on mass, and they still do damage in a different way that they didn't do before. But you also have a little bit of Tank Buster support or Wrecker Boy support, or you can stick back into Gaz, whatever it may be. Now, Green Tide is based off you being a very cagey player and wanting to play Green Tide. But if you do the reps, you can really just break the meta in your own way because people won't see it coming. In the game right now is very focused on doing damage in melee. So Orcs can kind of figure that out with Green Tide and say, hey, we'll get in melee with you. We'll get stuck in the big game, bang it out, but we're going to beat you on points. Tactical Brigade is one of those cunning players games where, even as it was unlocking and evolving in real time and doing well, in before it got nerfed, people were already learning how to utilize reserves more than we had seen before. They had been using leapfrogging, where people were jumping on in and out of transports and missiling units forward and sending them orders with mechs. And people were utilizing Zod in that detachment. Flash gets on mass. Tank Busters were still being used as +1 to hit as a counter to elite infantry and 3 wound models. So there's still a lot of options in that I think a skilled player can kind of figure out. And don't forget, the Flash gets with the big mega getting mega armor is amazing as a Overwatch potential, and people just learn how to really lock down corners of the board with that too. So these would be the tier list of one that I would say if you were someone that's looking to actually press and stress with what you're trying to play, not really going to be too subject to I'm gonna play what's just on in my heart. I want to play what's also strong and in my heart. Then these were the three detachments that I would say you should focus a bit more on. If it is tier 2, as we move on to, I just put GT or general RTT. Tier 2 would say if you're just going to general GTs, not that they don't matter, not that they're very strong, hard, but if you're going to a 35-person GT or 40-person GT, it is different than a super major or one of those 80-person GTs where 25 people in them are in the high ELO scores, right? So that doesn't mean this are not bad and that they can't jump in tier list based off the pilot, but this is what I still think you guys should focus a little bit more on. So is Dread Mob number 1. I think that Dread Mob still has yet to be pushed to its max potential, and it was already doing well at high GTs and even slipping into super majors. You go to RTTs, I think you could totally win your local RTTs and do well in your league games, whatever it may be, if you're playing Dread Mob or Bully Boys. Bully Boys is very much, can the pilot maximize the combat phase, pile-ins, consolidations, clearing screens, punching holes in people's units with a little bit of punch shooting they got, and then really just controlling the tempo of the game and stopping the enemy from getting where they want to be. That's based on the pilot and the meta they're playing themselves. And still has yet to be explored because how we declare the wall now. And I think a lot of the time people think you have to go too character heavy on that. And when I'm going to run Bully Boys, I'm going to see if I can get a little bit less character heavy on that. So we have now tier 3. Now, this is not me discouraging you from playing these by any means because it's still fun. I think you can still make it work. There's going to be some really skillful gets that are going to get stuck in with some of this stuff. And I'm going to give it some repetitions for fun because I like my buggies. But I think it takes passion. I think that if you're going to do this, you're going to understand that you're going to be taking a lot of, knocks on the head. You're going to be losing a couple teeth on the way in. You're going to maybe even have to get a few limbs. But at some point, you will be on top. You will be on top and catching people off guard. If you're playing League, if you're playing Crusade battles, you're going RTTs, go ahead and really try to figure out cult of speed and to hunt. Just learn to play in your meta and enjoy your experience in your local community. Allow Reddit to do Reddit thing. Allow the YouTube comments to do the YouTube comment things and fight each other. But Orcs, just like at all times in the grim dark future, when everyone's at war, Orcs are the only ones that are having fun. So let's keep it that way. Let's not give the Space Marines, the Umis, the Eldar, the Necrons, these other players, any reason to really snicker and be happy about our frustrations. Let it out. I understand why you're frustrated, but solutions can be found and explored here. And we were already doing well. You're still going to crump them anyways down the road. So don't give them the benefit of your frustration to fuel their snickering. Keep it within to ourselves what our frustrations are, but they're calculated frustrations, not simply I'm going to burn all of my GW model frustrations, right? We aren't AdMech players out here, hopefully. Don't just joke it to the AdMech players. Your rules would suck. So with that being said, I want to give a shout out to the comments real quick and let some of you guys try to dissuade me if you'd like in the tier list as I have it up right now. And there's enough of you guys in the comment and in the live stream that you guys might be able to do that. But I want to give a shout out to Andrew Stone, $20. War, it's headbutt time, boys. War. Absolutely, Andrew. And thank you for all the major support that you constantly do, dude. Oh my God, it's huge. It's humbling, and it always makes me feel, proud that we got to get like you around. Thanks for doing an all right job to support. So thank you. It means a lot. And I hope you get stuck in and aren't discouraged from what GW is doing. And I hope we aren't at each other's necks for what GW is doing. As for the other thing, Orc players are saying, can we? Oh yeah. Oh, I almost skipped the last unit. That wasn't even incidental. And Sword of Dakka. Sword of Dakka is also on the tier list. Yes, I didn't forget. It's right there at the bottom. Sword of Dakka, can be figured out by people that want to, understand and take advantage of re-rolling wounds, ignoring cover, and just running around the field with giving burner boys additional AP, and then also possibly the WAAAGH. I don't think anybody that exploring it is something to be laughed at. I think you're a proud git, and I appreciate you getting stuck in. So that wasn't even intentional, but that did just happen. That I just almost forgot that was in the tier list. So that's on me. Now, as the guys were saying, yes, and there's a good comment right here. My boy was already thinking positive vibe merc. Dude, you were before the video even started. He said, it's history now. What does the future hold? I think at least you're staying true to your name. Yeah, that's the good way we should look at it. And hopefully I answered some of those questions in the video. If I didn't, give me a thumbs down because that means I messed up. And then someone else, what's up, Dakota? The best way to run a Stampa now. The best way to run the Stampa is in Dreadmob. I have videos on that. I swear it wasn't a troll. The videos are like 9 months old, and people were doing good back then and can still do moderately decent now, but you might get on decimated, right? It depends on how much you follow the P's and Q's and what terrain you play on. Changed my PFP match to player. Okay, to look at my Stampa with no sustain. No, running Dreadmob, bro. But when you run in Dreadmob, don't shoot all your guns. Just shoot like your 3 main guns, and then you're far less likely to annihilate yourself. And yeah, some other armies, they get nerfed like we did, and then they don't even have other detachments to fall back on. So that's what's up. And Zod is still sick, dude. Zod with the reactive move has ruined so many people's games, bro. I'm telling you, if you run Dreadmob because you're already going to play more Dakka, or you've been playing it and you just picked up your Zod and you painted him, run Dreadmob and then try to reactive move 12 inches. Just watch people's faces when you're like, all right, as soon as you pick up that first model, bro, that first unit, when it's done moving, I'm reactive moving. All right, this whole break is moving 22 inches. It's going to break people's necks. They're going to be like, what? No, show me. It's going to be great. So, and yeah, we should have known this was coming, guys. Like I said, like I like to say is, this is what GW has been doing consistently, but this is why we always play the game at the rate that you want to play it. When I tell you to play the models you want to play and the units you want to play, it's not that I'm simply telling you to brainlessly maximize 18 kilocans and max Titanic walkers and then go out there and win a game. I'm saying learn how to maximize the certain data sheets and detachments you want to play and keep getting those repetitions in as times like now where the dust is settled. If you were someone that was playing Green Tide, you've hardly felt anything, or Dreadmom, you've hardly felt anything that's going on. So if you're someone that's discouraged, I'm with you. I was discouraged because I was enjoying my Titanic walkers having sustained too. I was in Dreadmob, in my Death Dreads. I was totally going 3 custom Mega Blasters every game. It's hilarious. And I'm with you on that. It's frustrating because I want to play Cult of Speed more. But a lot of the same tools can still be played, and you can still figure it out. and you can still get reasons to play and paint, because that's what it is to be an orc player. Our hobby times were great investment. Takes a lot of time to collect and own these units. It's expensive, and it's, you know, a high burden on your skill ceiling sometimes to really get the results you want. So I think when times right now, it's not that I think you should put your orcs away. I think you should find the identity in your way to play the orcs, reinvest into your orcs even a little bit more in some ways, but focus on what you truly love. You might lose some teeth, but that's you understanding yourself as an orc player. Come back to the multiple communities, Discords, Facebooks, people, and, you know, if you're not finding the videos that you need to get better, put them in the comments. You know, you might kick me off to make some videos that I didn't make before. So don't get discouraged. If anything, get empowered. Let that WAAAGH energy make us thrive. Instead of getting, you know, angry and looking like a Grai or looking like a Tau, let's just get pumped up, pull up some more WAAAGH energy. Let everybody get noticed that we're not discouraged by anything anybody else does, because y'all don't dictate how much fun we have. We do. So if there's only one thing to keep in mind is don't cross our wall, because we'll knock your teeth out. Whoa.